Welcome back to the podcast. I'm Chelsea, and it's just me this week. I know that some of you loved having Mike join last week, and I did too. Having that other perspective and just dialogue was really fun for us. I hope that it was fun for you, and we do plan on doing that more and more. My dream is to hire Mike in my business so that we can do coaching and events together all around the country. And so, the best way, if you like having Mike apart, the best way to do that is just keep sharing things like this podcast, our social, our website. Share my coaching options with people that you know who are expecting or recent or seasoned parents. It is kind to share. Not only is that helpful to the business owner, but it's also helpful to your friends and family and people in your community to know about resources out there that are unique. And I do find that relationship coaching, specifically around the early parenthood sphere, is unique. And when I share that with people, they're really excited to know that it exists. So thank you guys for the positive feedback last week. I know that today's episode is going to hit home for so many of us. We're getting into a topic that is finally getting the attention it deserves: parental stress. Maybe with me, we should all take a collective, big inhale and exhale. Because when I said parental stress, I could feel it inside my body. So let's breathe in for 3. Hold for 3, and out for 3. Cool. Repeat that as many times as you need to. Pause my voice if that felt good and repeat it. So, the U.S. Surgeon General, Dr. Vivek Murthy, recently released a statement calling parental stress a significant public health issue. Now, as someone who's walked this path, I know how real this is. I remember a time when I felt like I was drowning, literally drowning in the demands of parenting, constantly comparing myself to other moms online and feeling like I was failing. But today, I want to talk about how we can reclaim our peace and support each other through the challenges that are early parenthood. Let's start by breaking down what Dr. Vivek Murthy shared in his latest advisory. He's calling out what so many of us have been feeling. Parenting today is harder than it's ever been. We are working more hours because we have to. We are spending more time on childcare, but somehow losing out on quality time with our partners, quality sleep, and even time for ourselves. So there's this continual growth of expectations on our brains and our bodies, and it is really causing us to carry that stress and overwhelm inside of us. That has an impact. The reality of having less time for rest and restoration through self-care and time for ourselves, it is depleting. I remember when my kids were smaller, I was trying to juggle it all, right? Just like we do, just like we think we're supposed to be able to do: work and parenting and taking care of the house and being social and trying to still be a good hot wife. I felt like there wasn't a single part of my life that wasn't stretched thin. I could feel it, my skin, my brain, my everything. It just felt stretched so thin. And the advisory also touches on something that hits home for many of us: the strain of caring for aging parents or other loved ones on top of everything else. So let me just stop and say, if you're feeling overwhelmed, I know we say this all the time, but it's okay to ask for help. It is not you being a lesser human. It is that the demands are insurmountable and we need each other if we're going to survive. let alone thrive as a society. So, whether that is delegating tasks, hiring support, or simply saying no to extra responsibilities, just remember you don't have to do it alone. Now, when we talk about parental stress, we're not just talking about the tough days or the sleepless nights that come with having a newborn. We are talking about this cumulative effect of constant pressure. High levels of stress can and do lead to burnout, anxiety, and even physical health issues. There was a time that I was so stressed that I knew it was affecting my health. I was getting sick more often, feeling constantly exhausted. It was impacting my relationship with my partner because my capacity was so much less. Stress doesn't just stay in one area of our lives, it spills over into everything. So, the Surgeon General's statement makes it clear that this isn't just a personal issue, it is a public health concern. When parents are stressed, it affects their ability to be fully present with their children, and that can have long term effects on the whole family. So, here's an invitation to think about how dealing with stress doesn't have to be finding extra personal time away from the family when you don't have other responsibilities. No, this can be incorporated into your daily routine. Maybe this starts with taking some things off your calendar. Like your child doesn't have to do swimming, gymnastics, taekwondo, and baseball all this year just because they think those things are fun or just because other kids are doing those things. I see way too many people out there that are just doing too much. And then they don't know why they can hardly breathe or why they don't have the patience to have a full conversation with their partner. Whew, we're doing too much, y'all. It's okay to go against the grain and not do everything. It's okay to set limits and boundaries with your kids. It's okay to set limits and boundaries with your workplace, with your social life, like whatever it is. Sorry, I'm cold. Whatever it is that you need. But then try to incorporate these stress reducing activities into your daily routine and into your family moments. Like our kids are going to need these stress reducing skills just like we do. So bring them into it. Even if it's 10 minutes of deep breathing or taking a short walk, these small moments of self care can make a big difference in managing stress. And sure, you're going to want to do this by yourself sometimes. We need that time to ourselves. And also, there are going to be times when we do this alongside our kids and our families, and we make it a family event. Dr. Murthy's advisory also highlights something that we all know too well. And I'm so glad that someone in his position is talking about this and bringing light to it. I mean, I think this is one of the most important parts because it's a place that we can make a change ourselves. This is that culture of comparison, especially online. When we see all day long these perfectly curated images of other families, and we start to feel like we're failing if our lives don't look a certain way, we're carrying that stress in our bodies, in our brains. We're not able to experience life fully because we're caught up on these shoulds and could haves and what ifs. Now, I've been there, okay? I'm not judging you. I've been there. I've been scrolling through Instagram feeling like I must be the only one who didn't have my shit all together. But we have to remember what we don't see in those photos is the mess, the stress, the real unfiltered moments. This constant comparison that is available to us in the palm of our hands, which you guys sometimes, I don't know about you, sometimes I'm like, I just want a flip phone again. I don't want the whole world in the palm of my hands. But also, when I'm in a healthy state, social media and everything it brings is can be very helpful, can be very connective. But we have to evaluate what state we're in and what we're using it for. And when I start to catch myself using social media as comparison and it just becomes detrimental to my mental health, that's when I know I have to draw a boundary for myself. This is where that personal responsibility comes in. Maybe we can't change childcare policies right now from our own homes, but you know what you can do? You can set some damn boundaries around how and when and how frequently you're using social media and how you feel about it. Okay? Because constant comparison leaves us feeling exhausted, burned out, and like we're never quite measuring up. When the truth is, every family is different. There's no one right way to parent, and we are not seeing the ins and outs of everyone's situation. And I think that's for a couple of reasons. I've actually really gone back and forth about this mentally because I feel so strongly that it is detrimental that what we see online is the highlight reel. It is usually the good. It is not the hard moments where someone is crouching in the corner crying or someone is yelling. And I think this is a kind of a dilemma because as much as I would love to see more of that, as much as I would love to see beyond the highlight reel of other people's lives, two things. One, in order to deal with a hard situation, you're typically not going to pull your phone out and record it. Like that would make it really difficult to be present in the moment, especially when your kids or your spouse or just yourself need you. And two, there's a lot of exploitation issues, I think. And I like to remind myself that we're not seeing really hard moments of parenting. And I don't think that we should very often or, without proper consent, because that's exploiting our kids. It really bugs me when I see people online like using their kids' meltdowns and recording them instead of being present with their kids and figuring out what they need. And I'm not here to judge, but I am here to say there are good reasons why we don't see the hard behind the scenes. And it's our like due diligence to ourselves to remind ourselves of that. I remember one evening after a particularly tough day, this was in our old house, and I felt just completely overwhelmed. And I went online hoping to find some comfort and instead was bombarded with images of seemingly perfect moms. Like I just scrolled and I scrolled and I'm like, everyone has their shit together. Why is everyone doing this better? It made me feel even worse. And it wasn't until I started having conversations as a new mom about this that I realized what I was feeling wasn't just me. She was going through the same thing. This is a common experience with having so much social media. Now, like our moms and our grandmas maybe saw things like the tabloids. They saw things in newspapers, but it was like when they went to the grocery store or when they walked by a newsstand. So, sure, that was probably still detrimental in ways, but we have it in the palm of our hands and it's mixed in. It's mixed in with the tips and advice we get. It's mixed in with our best friend from elementary school's pictures of her kids. Like there's so much we want to see and so much good that comes from social media, but we truly have to be mindful and careful. And you've probably heard me say this before. If you listen to this podcast regularly, we have to be our own bouncers. So you have to put a little bouncer in your brain, like you're at the club and you get to decide what comes in, what has to stay out. You have to decide what comes into your brain and what has to stay out. So the next time that you catch yourself in that comparison trap, remind yourself it would not be great if all the hard, tough moments were shown on social media. Like, that's probably not the solution. We are seeing highlight reels, and I get to decide what works for me and my family and let go of that pressure to live someone else's life. You're not here to live someone else's life. So now, we hear the Surgeon General advisory and bringing to light some important topics. But I think what's important in the next few weeks and months, and honestly, years and decades probably, is that we're talking about what are the solutions. The Surgeon General is calling for a cultural shift. One where we value parenting as much as we value paid work. And I'm not sure how this is going to go. It feels a little dreamy to me right now. Maybe I'm a little jaded, but I hope that this cultural shift really takes root and that we see policies and conversations changing. This means more societal support, more open conversations about the stress we're under, and fostering connections that combat loneliness and isolation. It's about recognizing that being a parent is just as important as any job out there, and it deserves the same level of respect and support. In our community, in the community that I strive to have and hold, we talk a lot about things like intuitive parenting, about finding what works for you and your family without worrying about what everyone else is doing. And I think this is exactly the kind of cultural shift we need, in addition to things like paid parental leave and childcare subsidies and work weeks that are flexible and make sense for working parents, and just this general support and connection that makes sense. And I can see it, right? I can see it coming down the pipeline. And I think that this advisory gives us the opportunity to start these conversations. It gives us the opportunity to have a little bit more weight to our conversations, especially if we're talking to someone who doesn't spend their time thinking and talking about how parents are impacted by all of these cultural expectations, norms, and the lack of policies to support them. So, I want to invite you to just a couple of things. One, start by being open about your own challenges. This can be as simple as sharing with a friend or in an online group. When we talk about more than just the pretty picture perfect, we get to create space for others to do the same. And that is where real support begins. Now, other options, other opportunities are things like asking your workplace how they plan to respond to this. It is talking, to people around you about policies that maybe are coming up on the ballot this election cycle. Have hard conversations, learn, and what I've learned is that being willing to learn new things and willing to change your mind is really important. I am a person of passion. I think that it's important that the things that we hold near and dear and that bring a burning passion inside of us, that we lean into that, and also that we're not so stubborn, that we're not willing to learn new information or to change our mind on something. You can be really passionate and willing to change your mind. That makes you a better listener. That makes you more apt to have an impact because you're not just trying to bulldoze. And I think of this especially as we think about workplaces and public policy. Like, we get to band together, not to be meek or weak or quiet even, but to use our passion, to use the knowledge, and now to use the backing of the U.S. Surgeon General with this advisory, to add a little weight to it. So don't be afraid to speak up. And if you are someone who's like, yeah, the stress really is overwhelming me, I am drowning, I know it can be hard in that space to think about getting support because it feels like another thing on the calendar, another thing to do. But here's the reality: you're going to stay stuck in this cycle unless you do things differently, and you're going to do things the same unless you intentionally learn and practice doing things differently. And I'm here to help you figure out what you can do differently to reduce stress, to free up some time and mental space and capacity, to not take more time with coaching, but to free up time, mental space, and just your capacity as a parent and as a partner, with the things that we're able to implement. So I know it can be hard to say, I'm going to take an hour every week for 4 months to work with a coach. But if I can give you back more of that time and more of that energy because of the strategies that we develop, because of the things that we are able to work through, and they're not just consuming your brain space, draining you all the time, because you are able to create some systems and communication in your home and in your relationship that really serve the big picture. That's buying back time. And people who grow their finances, who grow their legacy, who grow anything that they're passionate about, they know that there is an investment period. There is an investment period of going beyond in order to have higher returns. And my coaching is here for those people who want those higher returns. So let's make sure that we're talking about how we can be part of this shift, starting in our own lives and our own communities. Here are a few simple action steps that we can take. And these are not new and novel ideas. These are things you've heard me say again, but I want to remind you. Number one is prioritizing some self-care. It's not selfish, it's essential. Even if it is just a few minutes each day, make time for yourself. I am not a nail and spa girly. I am a lay in my hammock with some calming music and regulate my nervous system kind of girly. It doesn't matter what that is for you. Maybe it's a walk. Maybe it is journaling. Maybe it is reading something that helps you feel inspired and connected to yourself. These things don't have to be fancy, but you've got to be regulating that nervous system and feeling calm and at peace in your body however you can. And making that time to care for yourself makes you a better mom, better partner, better friend. Number two is building that support network. This is something that has been the main goal, literally, of my family life over the past 6 months, is building a support network, building community, and having people to turn to, just in a very, very real sense. Having people who know me and my family, having people who know our kids and can love them and can also reprimand them, outside of just me and my husband and our immediate family. So whether that is joining coaching with me, whether that is an online community, maybe it's joining us on Peanut Pods, whether that is inviting friends over once a month for a game night or finding a local group, connection really is key. And we are stronger together, and we get to forge new ways. We get to bring new things to light with our strength together. And then lastly, I can never say this enough, let go of the perfection, babe. There is no one right way to parent. What works for you and your family is what matters most. I've had to learn to let go of the idea that I need to do everything perfect. And once I did, it's a struggle, right? Like a tug and pull, and I'm trying to hold on to things. But once I let go and I figured out what is really important to be done a certain way and what does not have to be done perfectly, which is most things, I found so much more peace and joy in the everyday moments. And I want that for you too. Thank you for joining for this week's episode. And if you're feeling the weight of parental stress, no, you're not alone. You don't have to navigate this by yourself. I am here for you. And if you're doing your best, if at the end of the day, you can say, I loved myself, I loved my partner, I loved my kids, and things might be messy, but those things are taken care of. I think you're doing a really damn good job. So until next week, stay cool, friends. And take care of yourself, even if that means setting some screen time limits on your phone or maybe taking a social media break. Let me know how this lands for you, what you're thinking of the Surgeon General's advisory. And do you think that having this highlighted to the level of a public health crisis or a public health concern, I think is the word, do you think that that's going to make an impact? Are people going to listen? Are we going to see change happen? I want to know what you think. Let me know in the comments on this podcast, or shoot me a message, Chelsea Brooke Skaggs on Instagram, Chelsea at postpartumtogether.com via email.